This is a story about the man who wrote the Ramayana and what he was doing before he wrote it. His name was Ratnakar. He lived in the forest with his family and fed them the only way he knew, by robbing the travelers who passed through on the road between villages, taking everything they carried, sometimes worse. He was feared on that road. He was good at what he did, and he had never once questioned whether what he did was wrong. One day, a sage came walking through the forest alone, chanting quietly to himself, carrying nothing of value, just a veena and the name of God on his lips. It was Narada. Ratnakar stepped out from the trees and stopped him. Narada looked at him with complete calm, the calm of someone who has nothing worth stealing and knows it, and asked one question before submitting to being robbed. You do all of this for your family. Will they share the burden of your sins with you? Ratnakar laughed. Of course they would. They were his family. Go and ask them, Narada said. I will wait here. Ratnakar tied Narada to a tree to make sure he couldn't leave and went home. He asked his wife, he asked his children, he asked his parents. One by one, they looked at him and said the same thing. We love you. We will share your food and your shelter and your life. But your sins are your own. We cannot carry those. Ratnakar stood in his own home and felt the ground shift beneath him. He had spent his whole life believing he was doing this for them. He had never once asked whether they wanted him to. He went back to Narada, untied him, and fell at his feet. What do I do? Narada looked at this man, this killer, this robber, this person whose mouth had spoken nothing but threat and violence for as long as he could remember, and gave him one word: Ram. But when Ratnakar tried to say it, it wouldn't come. His mouth, so accustomed to dark words, could not form the sacred name. The syllables tangled. What came out was Mara, the word for death. Narada considered this for a moment. Then he said, Then chant that. Mara, Mara, Mara. Keep going. I will come back. And here is the most extraordinary thing in the story. Mara, 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 said fast enough, becomes Rama, Rama, Rama. The word for death. Chanted long enough, in complete sincerity, becomes the name of God. Ratnakar sat down in the forest and began to chant. He sat so still for so long that ants built their nest around him, over his legs, over his torso, over his shoulders. Plants wrapped their tendrils around him. Birds nested in his matted hair. And still he sat. And still he chanted. When Narada returned, he found an anthill where a man had been. He called out. From inside the anthill, a voice, still chanting. Narada removed the anthill carefully, and Ratnakar emerged, transformed so completely that the sages gave him a new name, Valmiki, the one who emerged from the anthill. And Valmiki went on to write the Ramayana, the story of Ram, in the very syllables he had been chanting in the dark for years, not knowing if they were working, not knowing if anyone was listening, not knowing anything at all except that he had been told to keep going. The man who could not say the name of God wrote the greatest poem ever written about him, in the syllables of death turned inside out. I'll leave you with one question today. What dark word are you chanting right now that might already be turning into something else? This has been The Long Thread Ancient stories for the present moment. If this story stayed with you, follow the long thread and wake up to a new one tomorrow.